Hello, everyone. My name again is Babatunde Jimo, and we'll be talking through elicitation and collaboration in the BABOK, which is the Business Analysis Book of Knowledge. And then today, I mean, I will try and break it down as simple as possible so that a layman can understand what elicitation is, especially in these days of AI and whatnot. So, what is elicitation? Again, I like to demystify things and try to break down the English. Some of these things are most times English language. Excuse me. So, elicitation literally means drawing out information, right? And every one of us do that part time, right? We elicit. We try to draw out information for whatever reasons, for projects to do anything. So I'll give you an example. If you were to build a three-bedroom flat, for example, you will need to elicit. You want to know where you want the kind of land you want to buy. You want to find out if that land is a valid land, if there are no issues with the land, government issues, and all these things. You want to find out. That is you eliciting. Because you're trying to make an informed decision and build a three-bedroom flat that you wouldn't have issues with in 10, 15, 20 years to come. So you want to make sure that you do everything right from the land possession up till when you eventually construct that building, and in this process, from that cycle of acquiring land up to construction, building, painting of stuff, you will see that there are a lot of techniques that you would be engaging with to draw your conclusions or to make an informed decisions. And sometimes you'll find yourself interviewing these people, asking questions around maybe in that area, and you want to know this property or this land, is it a good land? You are probably asking somebody on the street. That's interview. Sometimes it could be you going online to do some researches and find out what is it about that location. So there are a lot of techniques that we engage with when we are eliciting, right? Having said that, we try to break it down to software development or in our day-to-day life as a business analyst. Mind you, I like to clarify that elicitation, business analysis as it were, is not just for software development alone. The business analysis as defined by Babok, it's a discipline, where we go ahead as professionals to help people solve problems, or enterprises, organizations solve their problems. Basically that's what we do. And there are techniques that we use and tools to solve these problems or to help them achieve their goal. Basically that's how Babok defines business analysis, or business analysts helping them solve their problems or achieve their goals. Right. Having said that, so like I said, elicitation, um, of course, each time we engage in elicitation, it is because we have a project in mind, either process improvement or a digital transformation project. Most of the time, it is a digital transformation project, which is we are trying to take, for example, build an app, right, or build a website or build a software. And as a business analyst, you would find yourself doing this, every now and then. You want to make sure that the requirement that is necessary, right, to build that solution is what you have. And in my experience as a business analyst, your name will come up a lot. Anything that goes wrong, the business analyst is the one that is being called, right? And I've seen this firsthand. A developer does something wrong, it's very quick to say, oh, it's the requirement that they gave me, right, that I built. And he won't be lying if he says that, right? So you need to learn how to gather the right requirement and how to document this requirement. Babok talks about four types of requirement, right? I'm sorry, I'm just speaking from the from my head, offhand. Babok talks about four types of requirement: the business requirement, the transition requirement, the stakeholder requirement, and the solutions requirement. Under the solutions requirement, we have the functional and non-functional requirement. I'm just going to talk briefly about these things before I continue. So, you remember where we are coming from, elicitation, which literally means trying out information, vis-a-vis requirement gathering. And like I said, as a business analyst, you find yourself doing a lot of this, especially in a digital transformation project or process improvement. So let's take one example. So if, for example, you own a restaurant, right? A typical restaurant out there, and you want to digitize it. I say this a lot. Most things that we do, when you hear the word digitize, don't be scared. It's just those big grammar around tech. When we talk about digitization, what it really literally means is we are trying to take a process that or you are familiar with or you have seen, but trying to take it from that way of doing things, the manual ways of doing things, are trying to now digitize it. And the main reason why we do that is just to take away the pain point. And when I say pain point, again, don't mind my English. It's just those things that is stressful, right? For example, if you were to digitize or build a restaurant app, right? Like you want to digitize Mr. Biggs or the KFCs of this world. The first thing to do is to understand the current state. And when we say current state in business analysis, we mean how things are done now. How the way things are done, the processes, how do you cook, for example, how do you serve people, how do you put food on the menu, blah blah blah. The current state, how you do things now, right? And you want to understand that first of all as a BA. So you go there and start talking to people. That's you eliciting. You started the work already. So you go to the people selling the food. Oh, how do you serve? How do I mean, do you have problems with change? I mean, people want to collect change. You have issues like that, and you will be shocked at what they have to tell you. Oh, yes, so sometimes people want to collect ₦5 change, and we don't even have it sometimes. And sometimes these things cause issues, it cause problems. Okay, that's then you start noting these things down, right? And after that, you document. I mean, again, I talked about the 4 types of requirements as prescribed by Babok. The business requirement. I'm sorry, I'm just taking a little digression. The business requirements are the requirement of the business. As simple as that. What is the business? Identify the business, right? The business, for example, in this case that you are saying, is the business is the food business. A restaurant is a food business. That's what they do, the food business. What does the food business require? They want to um, be able to sell more in terms of customer acquisition. They want more customers. The ones they have, they want to keep them. That's customer retention. That's what they want to um, you know probably open more branches or have a more digital presence. That's a business requirement, and etc. So as a business analyst, you want to be able to document this requirement. What does the business want? Which leads us to stakeholder management, because one of the very big things you will keep doing as a business analyst almost every time is stakeholder management. So who are the people you have to be able to identify? Who are the people that can give you certain information per time? You don't go to a gate man, for example, and ask him how food is made in a restaurant. They will never know, right? Because his work is to stay at the gate, right? But if you need to know about the security of tools, the security of port and stuff like that within that same restaurant, you speak to the gate man, right? So as a business analyst, you must be able to identify stakeholders and be able to know how to manage them in terms of how to communicate with them, how to collaborate with them, how to inform them per time. It takes us to what we call research chat, which is a whole lot of things definitely. So let's go back. We are trying to digitize a restaurant, and I said the first thing we do is to understand the business, what they do now. In understanding the business, you get to hear firsthand the pain point. Like I said, there's issue with change. Some people want to collect five naira change. We don't have change. You have to start looking out everywhere. Okay, that's a number one problem. Number two is space. Especially during rush hours, 2 p.m. People want to come and eat amala, and the first 30 people that come in, they've really occupied the whole space. And we have issues of people not being able to buy food just because they don't have anywhere to sit. So you have space issues. Also, okay, space, you note that. And then again, we have um issues of people getting here to find out that the food they want is finished. So they are disappointed and we don't like it. We wish there was a way we will communicate to them that before you get that, because some people come 10 kilometers away because they really love our food, right? And just for them to get here and they find out that, oh, the food is finished, right? Okay, you note that down. Now, because I'm talking to new business analysts, don't be scared. I'm imagining some people are already asking in their mind, how do I know the right questions to ask? There is really no format in asking question. Just flow with it, right? There is no stupid question in business analysis or in elicitation for that matter. The idea is to uncover or to understand the current process. How is food being served? How is the table being cleared? How do you what food do you normally have on the menu? Which of them is the most served? Which one of them is the least served? How many days a week do you open? What time do when do you close? What time do you open in the day? And things like that, just general questions. And using these, because I think um the synonymous to everybody. Everybody can easily relate with a food business, right? Now that you understand the current process, right, which is how things are being done, the next thing you want to do is to understand the future state. So we call the current process in business analysis, we call it the assise, while we call the future state, which is we call it the to be. And what do you mean by the future state? That is just where the business wants to be. This is where the business is now, like we established. The business wants to be somewhere else in terms of, we want to be able to serve more customers. We want to be able to increase our customer base. We want to improve our profit. We want to do X, Y, Z. That's where the business wants to be. Again, you need to be able to use your understanding of the current state to kind of design the future state, because you don't want to migrate the problem to the future state. And remember what we are saying, we are trying to build an app, right? My food business. Now that we understand the current state, what we need to do now as a business analyst is to now design the business requirement. I said it, you be in document like the BRD. Of course, it's just a little snippet, so I may not be able to share those documents. But in the real class, you will see this document and you will design one. So the business requirement is just a document. The business requirement document, or the BRD, is just the document that contains the business requirement. The business ask what the business is asking for, right? And then you're able to document that. Again, one of your greatest strengths as a business analyst is collaboration. You don't always know everything, but you should know how to identify the right people to answer your questions, or the right people to talk to per time. Right, you don't always know everything, right? Especially if you are working in different sector. Today you might be working in oil and gas, another time it could be healthcare, another time it could be insurance, right? You don't always have all this knowledge, but if you're able to collaborate well, ask the necessary questions, you will survive, right? So it takes us to from the business requirement, which is the fact that you understand the current state. You understand what the business is asking for. You're able to document that in an Excel sheet or a Word. The next thing is, you want to now be able to write out the requirement in terms of understanding the stakeholders, which takes us the stakeholder requirements. Remember, we've talked about 4 requirements. Takes us to the next one, which is the stakeholder requirement. Now you want to understand the stakeholders in that business, right? In this example of the food business, you know that we can easily identify NAFDAC, which is in charge of food and stuff like that. You can identify them as a stakeholder. You can identify um, an average person that comes in the restaurant to purchase his food. You identify them. You can also identify um the people that serve the food. They are also stakeholders. They're part of people that move the business. So just to mention a few, your business here as a business analyst, right, is to now elicit these set of stakeholders. Remember, there are different techniques by which you elicit. We talked about, I mean, it could be a one-on-one interview where you're just practically talking to one stakeholder and say, hey, this food that you come here to buy, do you like it? Is there anything you would like to change? I mean, are you looking out for any changes? And the guy said, yeah, I just wish that they could have more chairs. Okay, really? Okay, yeah, because sometimes when we get there, the whole place is filled, and we just have to sit down under the tree and eat. Okay, that's you having a one-on-one, and conversation with somebody just to understand their pain point, or identify what it is with them, right? Another technique we could use is workshop is trying to gather people with um with the same let me say, people that are the same character. Let me put it that way. We are trying to elicit all of them at once. That means, maybe for example, you want to talk to all the cooks in that restaurant. Instead of talking to them one after the other, you could just bring all of them together, right, and talk to them. The people serving, instead of talking to them one after the other, you could just bring all of them together to talk to them, to elicit them, to understand their pain point, to understand the bottlenecks they experience on daily basis. So that is a workshop. There are many of them. There's prototyping, which is modeling out um, the current state. You can model it out to now say, okay, I think this part of it is not good. That's prototyping. Just like you have it in car models, in houses, your architectural design is an example of model prototyping. Before you build the main thing, you do a little model of how that thing will be. This is very common even in warfare, right? If you have strategy, um, ships or military ships sometimes are, you have prototyping. They do a little pool, and they put a mini ship on it, and they subject that mini pool to different waves to see how that military ship would react in certain climate conditions. So that's prototyping. We also use that. We have observation as also an example of elicitation. That is, you observing to identify a problem, you know, and then we have document analysis. We have quite a lot. I'll just mention a few here, but you will talk more on this in class. Right. So whatever one you decide to use, there is no playbook to which one you should use. It depends on the kind of person or the group of people that you're eliciting per time. So you, like I said, remember where we are coming from. The first thing we did was to design the BRD, which is the business requirement document. And then we are going to the stakeholder requirement document, which is you identifying the stakeholders that make up the business. You want to know what they want. uh you know we want to also identify what the things that constitute as a pain point for them, right? And then this next one you want to do is the solutions document, the solutions requirement, which is how this will now be designed. We are now talking more technical, right? That's where we start talking about how to and when we talk about solution, remember now, in the case of a software design, for example, you remember, as a business analyst, you are the middleman between the tech, right, and the business. In most cases, the business don't understand tech. They don't understand the developers. They don't want to talk to them. Just get it done. And the tech guys too, sometimes they are not also interested in business. So you are that middleman that understand business and that understand the technical side of things. So it is very important that you're able to document the business requirement well and be able to translate it into technical requirements. And it's simple. I mean, things are better now. With your user stories, if you're able to design your product backlog, you can easily achieve this, translating the business to tech, right? So a developer will see a user story now, understand what it means, what is expected to do, right? So the solutions requirement basically means you being able to document the solution, how the solution will be done, what is required to build that solution. In this case, what is required to build the food app, right? So and then under solution we have the two types. It's broken down into two. We have the functional requirement and the non-functional requirement. Functional requirement, just like a sound, those part of the solutions that if you take them out, that solution will not function optimally. I'm sure you can think of some of them right now in your head. So take for example your food app. If you cannot, if there's nothing like cart, for example, it makes it difficult to buy. If you cannot make payment, then what's the point? You cannot even buy anything on the app. So payment, card, for example, are functional requirement. I'll break it down for that to something you can understand. Your phone. When I say functional requirement on your phone, for example, you think about it. What are those things on your phone? What are those functionalities on your phone that when they don't exist, if for example they don't exist on your phone, you cannot operate your phone very well, right? Yeah, exactly. Your power button. I'm sure you can remember many. So if there's no power button on your phone, you cannot even switch it on or off, right? As simple as that. That's a functional requirement. If there's no battery in your phone, you cannot operate your phone. If there is no keyboard on your phone, you cannot operate your phone. Those are functional requirements which needs to be captured. And then again, don't be scared. Somebody's already thinking, oh, how do I achieve this? Yeah, that is where the collaboration comes in. You have a set of developers in your house, in your company, who can guide you through, right? And then the non-functional requirement are those parts of your solution that, yeah, they are there, but um their absence from that solution doesn't necessarily stop the solution from working optimally. Take for example your phone cover. You provide aesthetics to your phone, but if you take it off, yeah, it's still your phone will still work, right? It still work. If you take away what else on your phone? Um say the earphone jack. For example, if you pull it out or you destroy that part, your phone will still work, right? It's just that you can't use your phone again with it. That's all. Your car, right? If you take away the windscreen of your car, it doesn't stop your car from working, right? If you take away the seats in your car, it doesn't stop your car from working. So these are the things. So every solution, there's a functional requirement, and there's a non-functional requirement, right? So um as a business analyst, you should be able to design all these documents, right? So elicitation, like I said again, is just trying to draw out a try to draw out informations, right? So remember what we are talking about. We are trying to build a solution, a restaurant solution. Now that we understand the current state, we understand the future state, which is the to be. Now, what do we do next? Is to now design the solution itself. All right. As a business analyst, what do? You design the product backlog, right? You design the product backlog. And what does this mean? A product backlog is a document that expresses requirements. That's all. It's as simple as that, right? It just expresses this requirement in three statements, or three phrases. Each of those requirements must answer three questions of who, what, and why. Who is doing what? Who is doing, what? What is he doing? Why is he doing it? So what this does to you is it makes you more uh, as a business analyst, is it increases your design thinking mentality. So you understand why these things is happening on each of these platforms. So if you take your Gmail, for example, as much as we interact with all these solutions every day, your WhatsApp and all these apps every day, we are not conscious of the fact that each time we interact with these solutions, we are answering those three questions in our mind. Who am I? What am I doing on the phone? And why am I doing it? We do it so fast that we don't even know we are answering these questions. So take for example your Gmail. Each time you open your Gmail, you are doing three things, right? You as a person, that's you. What are you doing? You want to open your email. Why? Because you want to view it, right? You want to access your email. That's why you open your email every time. So when you open it, you also do three things, one of three things, right? Which for people who are a bit familiar with the development terms, called CRUD: create, read, update, and delete. So each time you open your email, you are doing one of those three things. You're either creating an email, you want to compose an email, you are probably reading an email, right? Or you want to delete an email, right? So product backlog. What do we mean by product backlog? It's a document that expresses requirements, and it contains epic, which is an epic is a requirement, a high level requirement. Let me put it that way. A high level requirement. I'm going to explain this very, very fast. In a product backlog, we have the epic, we have the user stories, we have the acceptance criteria, and yeah, priority. You know how we prioritize each of these requirements. I'll take it again. In a product backlog, you have your epic, you have your um, user stories, acceptance criteria, and your priority. You know the way you prioritize these things. So, what's an epic? An epic is a high level requirement, and I'll use an example. I'll use a house for an example. Let's say a 3 bedroom flat. So, each of the compartment in your house is like an epic, right? So there are multiple things you do in your room that you cannot do in the bedroom, right? There are multiple things that you do in the bedroom that you cannot do in any other room, right? So the bedroom, for example, will be an epic. So I say when you are designing a product backlog, you look for an epic that can express other requirements. So for example, when I mention bedroom as an epic, for example, in your house, the question is, what are the things that you do in your bedroom? Exactly. So that's where you have your bath, that's where you do your poo, that's where you probably brush your mouth, that's where some people probably wash their clothes there. Those two things cannot be done in any other room. Those are a set of requirements that only happens in the bedroom. Set of requirements that happens in the bedroom. So bedroom will become an epic. Exactly. So when I say your room, again, as an epic in your house, your room is where you probably will have your wardrobe. Your room is probably where you have your mattress, where you have your bed, where you probably do your makeup and stuff like that. So your room will be what? An epic. So you understand me? Exactly. So your room is an epic. So those set of requirements that I just mentioned, that's where you sleep, that's where you have your clothes. Those are requirements. It only happens in the room. So that's exactly what happens when we try to create an epic when we are building an app. So we have epics like user management. We have epics like audit trail or audit. We have epics like dashboard. We have epics like you know I'm trying to not go so deep. You know, user management. We will talk more about these things. So yours is able to say, okay, under user management, what are the set of requirements that happens in user management? For example, that's where you have your uh, user management table, right? Which is like backend stuff. Where you can see the list of all the users in your system. Um, the the dashboard, for example, is where um, as a user, where you see your history. For example, I've bought 10 plates of rice, I've bought 20 plates of eba in the last 6 months. It's on your dashboard that you can see this, right? So I don't want to waste too much time, so let me do a recap of what I've said today. We've talked about elicitation and collaboration, and I've said that elicitation is um the science let me put it that way, of drawing out information, right? You want to understand, that's it. Just want to ask questions, you just want to interview people, you just want to facilitate workshops to understand the current states, to understand the future states, to understand everything that is there, the processes and whatnot. That's elicitation, right? I've also talked about the four types of requirements as captured by Babok: the stakeholder requirement, the business requirement, the solutions requirement, where you have the functional and the non-functional requirement, and then you have this transition requirement. I didn't really talk about transition requirement, yeah, because um, it's I mean it's not. we don't really get to do it, but it's fine. We'll talk about it in the next video. So these are the four types of requirement. I've also talked about you know transiting from the manual way of doing things to digital ways. Um, I've talked about building a solution, right? What you should do. Talked about the product backlog. What is contained in the product backlog? The epics. I've explained the epic. I don't have much time. I'll have explained the user stories, the acceptance criteria. I can actually do it um, in a minute. So I've talked about epic. I said an epic is high level requirement that contains other requirements that are similar just to that high level requirement. User story, I've explained the user story. I said this a statement. A user story is a statement that expresses a requirement and it answers the questions what, why, and who. Who is doing it? Why is he doing it? For what reason? And I said each time we interact with any solution, we are always asking that question. If you pick up your remote control, your TV remote control, that is you. You have answered the question, who? You, Shola, has picked the remote. What do you want to do? You want to change the station. Why? So that you can watch something more interesting. Right? And that's a user story. An acceptance criteria is just a set of criteria or a set of requirements or a set of conditions that must be satisfied for me to say, oh, that work is done, right? So if you and that's why as a business analyst you don't need to know how to code. Your job is not to code really, but you should be aware enough to know the set of requirements that or set of conditions that must be satisfied before you say this work is done. It's just like when your appliances, when of your appliances at home get faulty, save your refrigerator, you don't need to know how to fix it. You call somebody to come fix it for you. After 2 hours the person says, I'm done, right? Because you have some set of conditions in your mind that must be fulfilled. It is easy for you to say, oh yes, exactly, awesome, you've done a great job, or no, you have not done a great job, because before you came in, before the fridge got before this fridge spoiled, within 3 hours it gets frozen. Now that you said you have finished this work, this is 6 hours, it's still not frozen. That means you've not done it. So it's free. That is what we mean acceptance criteria. So if you are working with developers and say, yeah, for example, you are working on login, for example, okay, we are trying to work on login, you put down the set of conditions that must be met for you to say, okay, login is done, right? When your developer say I'm done, your front end has done its bit, your back end has done its bit, and they're saying, oh, login is now working. You ask for the URL to test run it, and in this acceptance criteria you had captured there that if the login details is correct, the system should give you a green button sign to say welcome. That is what you captured in acceptance criteria. Now they say they are done, and you put in the username and password instead of the system saying welcome. What you just see is your dashboard straight. All you need to say, no, this is not what I want, right? So that's what we mean acceptance criteria. It's just a set of conditions that must be met before you can say a job is done. All right. So thank you very much. We'll continue same time, same station next week. Again, my name is Abatunde, and I hope you enjoy this little bit of elicitation and collaboration. Thank you.